If anyone in roots music today can be considered an Americana megastar, it's Brandi Carlile. The Washington-born singer-songwriter has become an icon in recent years, thanks to her soul-touching songwriting, incredible vocal range and timbre, and her high-profile collaborations with artists such as Joni Mitchell, Elton John, and Dolly Parton. After an impressive decade-spanning run of career-defining albums and rocketship growth, Brandi has mentally taken a step back from the glitz and glamour of fame on her newest album, Returning to Myself, to explore who she is in the context of her family life and her closest relationships. I'm Brent Funkhauser from Red Moon Media. Let's get into what makes this album tick. This album is very different from anything that Carlile has released previously, and a lot of that comes down to the writing and recording process. For years, Brandi and the Hanseroth twins have essentially been inseparable as co-writers and musical partners. But this album sees her breaking away from them more to explore new creative avenues. Along with the traditional co-writes with the twins, this album features a lot of Brandi's solo cuts on it, as well as co-writes with producers Dessner and Andrew Watt, as well as with Elton John and Bernie Taupin on one track. While I believe Tim and Phil contributed instrumental parts to this album, their voices are actually absent from this record, which actually makes a pretty marked difference in the sound. Brandi has gone on record as saying that most of the vocal harmonies on this record were done by her, with a few contributed by Justin Vernon of Bon Iver. I couldn't resist. Of Bon Iver. Had to try and rile up someone. All that said, I'd say that the risk they took by changing up the formula panned out, because the production on this record is phenomenal. Based on a New York Times profile on Brandi that preceded this record, it seems like much of the album was recorded solo at Dessner's Long Pond studio, with Brandi and the Hanseroth twins making finishing touches at Andrew Watt's studio in LA. Although I had some initial uncertainty about whether or not the collaboration between Dessner and Watt would be harmonious, I've got to say that the two really brought the best out of each other on this record. Based on some of the other work I know him from, I think Dessner's influence on this album is much more recognizable than Andrew Watt's is, just with all those spacey and atmospheric cuts throughout this album. However, there are a couple of big rock numbers where Watt's production style really shines. That is, of course, if I have the right sense of who contributed what. And getting into the nitty-gritty for a moment, the mix and master on this record are superb. I think this is most evident on this track You Without Me, largely because we've actually already heard this recording of it on Brandi's collaboration record with Elton John, Who Believes in Angels. While I was admittedly a bit disappointed that this song wasn't re-recorded for this album, I was hoping for maybe two distinct versions, or at least two slightly different versions between the albums. The mastering on this album brought a lot more clarity to this track than it had on Angels, which I can appreciate. And that's a consistent theme in this record, clarity, both in terms of production choices, but also in what Brandi seems to be searching for in her songwriting. The opening track of this album, Returning to Myself, works as a bit of a thesis statement for what's to come, with Brandi declaring that self-exploration can't happen without the people in her life that make her who she is. It's pretty evident in the rollout for this album that Brandi is trying to connect with who she is at her most raw self, dropping her sequin nudie suits in favor of a more casual, comfortable look, and showing up in lesbian bars to sing karaoke. But she is also making the statement that she would not be herself without the people that she leans on most for support. I think it's no coincidence that in the chorus she sings, "My darlings, how I love you and you and you," her wife and her two daughters. I think that just kind of speaks for itself. And beyond that, this album explores the dynamics of her family and her relationship to them very intimately, on display in songs like A Woman Overseas, which chronicles her relationship with her wife Catherine and examines the way Brandi sees her act in social situations, as well as in songs like Anniversary and You Without Me. You Without Me is only one song on this album that deals with the concept of someone leaving, in this case, her starting to recognize her oldest child's fledgling sense of independence. A War with Time also explores this concept, with the chorus ending in "I'm never gonna wanna let you go, but I want you to go, don't even ask me, just go." I saw this as a take on the old saying, if you love something, let it go, if it comes back to you, it's yours. Especially because later on in the song she sings, "When you find yourself alone, retrace your steps and come back home." Now, I don't have as clear of an idea on the song who she's talking to, but I think it is once again her talking to her kids, especially because during the bridge of this song, she offers some advice that feels very parental in nature. But Brandi is also using this record as a space to explore her relationships with her chosen family, especially on the song Joni, a tribute to her friend and mentor Joni Mitchell. I'll say personally, it's not my favorite song on the album, but you can tell that there is a lot of sincerity in the sentiment behind it. Joni has had a huge impact on Brandi over the past few years, but I think it's also fair to say that Brandi has had a really big impact on Joni as well, helping reignite public appreciation for her and her music, and get her back to performing through the Joni jams. Mitchell's influence can actually be seen pretty prominently on this record, whether it's in Brandi's melodic phrasing and falsetto on Returning to Myself, or in the solo electric piano accompaniment on A Woman Overseas. They have a strong bond, and Brandi's reverence for her is made clear on this song, but also throughout this record. A big standout moment on this record for me is the song Church and State, Brandi's response to the political unrest we're experiencing in the United States. In the past, Brandi has discussed publicly how acutely aware she is of many political happenings in the US, especially as a gay woman raising a family. I think it's important to remember that the right to marry for gay couples has only existed in the United States for about a decade now, and it's constantly under threat. Even recently, there's been a lot of worry that the 2015 Supreme Court decision that effectively legalized gay marriage nationwide could be undermined or overturned by this current court. Church and State embodies some of the fear and frustration surrounding this season in American history, but it also offers some hope that this might just be a moment, not a permanent state, and listeners should keep on fighting for the world they want to see. It's angry without being bitter, but it's also a message of resilience and hope, encouraging listeners to weather the storm. That theme of resilience isn't constrained to Church and State either, but it's also present in Human, where Brandi encourages the subject to go easy on themselves, and on A Long Goodbye, where Brandi muses on finding the strength to accept loss and move on. A Long Goodbye ties up the album rather nicely in that way, because this theme of loss is present throughout the album, but also even wider in Brandi's catalog as well. But this turns into a celebration by taking a look at the growth that comes with it as well. I'll be honest, a lot of the writing on this album is very dense lyrically, which has made it somewhat more difficult to analyze than a lot of other records I've reviewed this year. And honestly, I hate to say this, but that might actually be my biggest gripe about this album, that it's kind of difficult to connect with some of the lyrics when the language is so intricate. And I'm not suggesting that Brandi needs to dumb it down or anything like that. I would never suggest that. Really, more than anything, I'm just kind of making the observation that because she changed up the process on this album and worked with different collaborators on her songs, there are some stylistic differences on this album that set it apart from previous works I'm familiar with from her, and because of that, perhaps we're getting a slightly different flavor on this album that doesn't really hit the same way for me. That's okay. Even with that said though, the musical direction on this album conveys the emotion of each track very clearly, and creates a mood for each song that's so strong, I don't think you'd have to understand a single word to feel it. Overall, I enjoyed this album, but it hasn't quite gripped me yet in the same way some of her past works have. That said, Brandi's records have always kind of been a slow burn for me, with my fandom and appreciation for them typically starting small and growing in intensity over time. So maybe one day, this album will hit for me in the same way as The Firewatcher's Daughter or By the Way I Forgive You. Time will tell. Brandi Carlile is one of my favorite artists, and I think this album marks a new chapter for her creatively, offering a lot of interesting self-reflection and perspective for listeners while exploring new avenues of creative expression. And with rumors that a second Highwomen record may be on the way, it seems like she is going to keep on exploring every path available to her. Alright, those are my thoughts on Returning to Myself. What did you think? Did you love it? Was it okay? Did you not really care for it? Tell me in the comments below, and let me know if you had a favorite song off the album. My name is Brent Funkhauser from Red Moon Media. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and follow along. I talk about Americana, folk, roots music, country, all that kind of stuff here on this channel. And if you subscribe, I may be talking about some of your favorite artists here in the near future. Thanks for watching.